we're a burden. Our neighbors would be better off if we just kept our door shut. And so I'm not going to put myself onto somebody else. I'm not going to reach out to a friend. I'm not going to say, hey, you want to go out? Because I don't want to inconvenience you. The Lone Ranger myth is awesome. It's a cool story. It's just complete nonsense. I think you have to call it out that not having friends is like worse than having a drug problem.
As adults, how do you make friends?
I have two moments politically that stick in my soul. One candidate said, if you vote for this person, you're voting for the end of democracy.
Yeah.
And then the other person said, well, if you vote for this person, you're voting for World War III.
Yeah.
And I remember turning the TV off going, I got two little kids. What do I do with this?
With that in mind, what can we actually do?
I think in an effort to solve for some of these challenges.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Travis Makes Friends podcast. Today, I'm making friends with John Delony.
What's up?
What's up, man? Welcome to the show.
Dude, you have officially doubled my friend count. So this is big
Oh,
for me.
sweet.
This is big. It's
Well,
100% improvement for me. It's awesome.
Oh, it's officially official then.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for having me out here, even though this isn't your studio.
Trust me, you're just kicking me while I'm down. I know.
Yeah.
This is a way cooler studio. This is awesome.
I want to go back in time, dude. You are the unique Ramsey personality in the fact that your main thing is not finance and money. It's relationships, which is what we talk about on the show. So I want to go back in time before all this stuff happened, because I doubt. I could be wrong, but I doubt was on your list of things that you wanted to do when you grew up. So
It was opposite.
let's talk about that. Let's say 10-year-old John Delony. Set the scene for me. What was life like?
Man, 10-year-old, my dad was a homicide detective and a SWAT hostage negotiator. My mom was...
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a gangster, dude. My mom was... a part of her upbringing was she was her particular faith strand said she wasn't allowed to go to college, so she was a stay-at-home mom. I think she was working a couple hours a week at like the craft room at our local church.
Okay.
And my dad's always encouraging her to get a job, get back out there and whatever, but it was just kind of low key. So 10-year-old me was a maniac. I was going to be a baseball player, and as all 10-year-olds are.
Yeah,
and then
I was going to be a basketball player, so
I saw myself shoot,
which was way worse.
It wasn't good. Yeah. But I also, for some weird reason, I wanted to be a psychologist at a young age.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm trying to think. I had an older sister, and I got into her tape basket. And I discovered like Poison and Warrant and Metallica. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be a metal singer. And then I got into Pantera, crazy. I'd followed them all over the place when I went into high school and college.
Okay.
And so then that was going to be the plan.
Yeah.
I went to
Did you pick
college.
up instruments and stuff?
Yeah, I played guitar since I was a little bitty kid.
Okay.
Actually about 10. I was about 10 years old, and I had a kid at school whose dad had a music studio, so we just played music. So
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Awesome.
So about 18, I was just pretty certain I was going to be a punk rock singer.
Were you encouraged to go to college at this point? Like, was this something that you were definitely considering?
I consider that one of my great, one of my great privileges in life. It wasn't a discussion, and it was just...
So which one are you going to?
You're going to college,
Yeah.
And the high school I went to was a giant 5A high school in Texas.
Okay.
And like the whole...
Where in Texas?
In Houston.
Okay.
I played football, and so Friday Night Lights is real,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I played every weekend to 7,000 people. So it was just what you know growing up. But there was no discussion. Everybody goes to college. It's just kind of what it was. And so it never occurred to me that there was alternative paths. So then, headed off to school. Still I'll get this degree because you're supposed to.
Right.
I'm going to be
But I'm going to be a metal singer.
Yeah, right.
Well, low-key, this one.
By the way,
yeah.
I wasn't good. Like, it's not like I was good at this. It's not like I had some like secret
It's
skill.
that delusional optimism,
It was
man.
insane delusion. Yeah.
What point did the delusion break?
Well, when I found out you have to have talent, right, to like keep doing
Just
this.
that it didn't dawn on you quite yet.
Well, once I got to college, I picked up an acoustic guitar, started playing coffee shop, stuff like that, and that was fun. But it was really a way to meet girls and a way to like be cool.
Yeah,
And my wife saw me playing at like a freshman orientation event, and
It worked.
She's like, "I'm going to marry that guy." Yeah, so it worked out in my favor.
Yeah,
but,
good for you.
Yeah, and then I started working in education when I got out of school. I was a high school teacher for a couple of years.
What did you go to school for?
Man, I changed my major 1,000 times. I went to school for business, and then my dad at this point had transitioned out to be a minister, so I was like, I'll do that. And then I was going to be a journalist, and I love writing. And then my mom started going back to school, and she's now in her 70s. She finished her last year at Oxford last year, and now she's still teaching classes. So she had this whole renaissance. Went to her first community college class at the age of 40. So
no way. Good for her.
And then she got her PhD at like 57. So she's a gangster too.
No kidding.
But then one weekend, I think I changed my major so much, and then one weekend, I think my junior year, I went and saw a movie, Good Will Hunting.
Yeah.
And everyone loved Will Hunting. Everyone loved Matt Damon. I wanted to be. Finally, it all came together for me, and the Robin Williams character was like, that's what I wanted to be, the guy behind closed doors that somebody called to help out. So I changed my major to psychology, and they brought me in, and they're like, bro, you've changed so much. Either you're going to be here another 3 years, or
we have to piece together this major for
we can get you enough classes to get you into grad school in psychology. But I ended up with a degree in humanities, and that allowed me to write a lot, allowed me to read a lot, allowed me to do poetry a lot, which I thought was real important. How to take these big ideas and really get them.
You were writing poetry?
To distill them. Well, I mean, you have to take all these literature and language classes, right? Which I loved, and then tons and tons of psychology.
You did love doing them, though.
Like the literature. Yeah, I love writing. My head's kind of chaotic, and so writing has been really helpful too. Like, how do you get that in three verses?
Distill the noise.
That's right. How do you get what you're feeling into a chorus, right? And I think in the way that I think every kid going to college would benefit from a couple of counseling classes. How do you sit and listen? How do you relate? I also think learning how to write a song or write poems. I think it's important because it helps you distill all these ideas. Yeah. We run around just balls of chaos, right? So if you can get that stuff down, and then of course I promptly didn't use psychology. I got a job as a high school teacher and a basketball and track coach, and that was incredible. And then I ended up circling back and working at my alma mater at a job way over my head.
Really?
Way over my head.
Why do you say that?
Dude, I had no business being an associate dean of students at like 25 years old. Like, but they hired me back. I was the student body president of my university. When my first year doing that, I became friends with the woman who was the first vice president for student affairs, and then she ended up hiring me years later.
So she's your other only friend that I just doubled.
She's not she wouldn't call you my friend. She's an incredible mentor. I kind of owe my whole life to her and a couple other guys there.
Oh, yeah? Really?
I mean, they gave me an opportunity when I didn't deserve one, right? And so then it was changing the oil in the car while it was flying down the highway, man.
Yeah.
And I spent 20 years in higher ed.
Figuring it out on the fly.
Yeah, 20 years in education.
Wow. Teaching psychology specifically?
No, I worked as a dean of students, so that was everything from student conduct and drugs and sexual assault.
You did that the whole time?
Yeah, the whole time.
Oh, wow.
And then got into running housing at the universities, and then got into intramural sports and running just the whole big picture, and ended the job I was working before I became a YouTuber was and YouTuber's just when my son makes fun of me. He's 14 and he likes to make fun of his old man. But yeah, I was a dean of students, so I was running the whole machine. But was sitting with people when the worst of the worst of the worst happened. And how do we figure out what to do next?
Did you find yourself during that time period still avidly consuming a certain type of material?
Yeah,
books-wise, content-wise?
Yeah, I was a laser beam to get a PhD so that I could have credibility in the academic
right? world. Yeah, sure.
So I got a PhD in education and studied student development and student conduct and all that. And the thing I was interested in is, how does a community who says, here's our rules, how do you bring somebody back into the fold? How do you handle somebody who steps out of that? And I always was fascinated by people who would say one thing, this is who we are, this is what we believe, but in practice they did something else. And so, from early 2000s to about 2011 and 12, every question I'd get from students, besides, like somebody has passed away, and how do you do that kind of stuff, right? Those hard conversations. You got to step away from school. I'm going to jail. I was assaulted last night. I think I was raped. I don't know. Like those kind of investigations and conversations. It was just hard thing.
Yeah.
But the main question people asked is, what's my career going to be? And can I make money doing this? And I want to get married. And then about 2011, 2012, it started to shift to, I don't think I want to be alive anymore. And I am so anxious or so depressed, I can't breathe, I can't move. And at the same time, I was going through that also. Yeah. And so that's when I ended up getting a second PhD in counseling, like circling all the way back full circle.
Wow.
And saying, I need to learn how to do this because I'm over my head.
Yeah.
And I was over my head professionally, but honestly, I was over my head personally.
Yeah,
I didn't know what was going on.
Well, and the stakes are so high.
Right. Can't be wrong.
Yeah, you're not just like, I changed the oil wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, this is people's lives that we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
How did you manage? The answer might be that you didn't. But how did you manage your own mental health when you have to deal with that just heaviness of those types of problems every day?
Yeah, I didn't do a great job. Until I think there were several things. There was some relationships, some really close friendships, some people that showed up for me when I don't know that I deserved it, but so there's the human element, and I can sit here and rattle them off. The people who showed up for me in the dark, that was pretty important. But it wasn't until I was working as the dean of students at a law school in Texas, and I'm not an attorney. I think there was 3 of us in the country that had that job that weren't licensed attorneys.
Wow.
But they brought us in to help with the mental health of these law students and these future lawyers. The profession was just struggling, right? But at nighttime, I didn't sleep very well. I've never slept well. So at nighttime, I would run around with police officers as a victim services guy. So what that meant was I would show up and help do death notifications, or show up and help sit with parents who just lost a kid, or with a spouse who just lost somebody. And it was being in those moments when there's nothing to say.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting with people. And that's when my life was changed, I think, radically from you got to have all the answers, you got to have all the right things, and really you got to just show up and sit. And when you struggle with anxiety and you sit with people day after day and you see the worst of the worst of the worst, for me, some people it makes them more anxious. For me, it freed me. It was like, this is how this ends. And so I get to choose minute by minute, day by day to find joy and to seek peace in my life. And it really made me less chaotic. On top of having a community of friends that I started hanging out with, taking care of my body, getting my marriage healthy, and those kind of things.
Sure. Was it just a loss of time for you when it came to, like, because you just mentioned a few things that probably should be at the top of everybody's priority list if they're in that type of depths of despair moment, which is taking care of your body, taking care of your relationships, getting your marriage back on track. Were those things, as the negative state that they were in at that time, was that just a direct relation to the time that you were spending at your day job versus plus?
It was just chaos. It was just chaos. It wasn't, it was kind of the Wild West, and there wasn't the information that we all have right now, right? It's come really fast. It's come really far, really fast the last 10 years. And so for me, it was just like, I stumbled into this guy that no one had ever heard of, had a blog inside of a blog named Peter Attia. And he was like, I'm just going to eat different. And I was like, I'm going to try that. And I stumbled into a couple other guys who were just like, dude, just go for a walk, man.
Yeah.
And
drink some water.
Get some sleep. Yeah. I mean, it was like human 101. And now, of course, you got like one of the most popular voices on the planet saying, will you just go outside and get sunlight in your eyes, please? You know what I mean? So,
yeah, right.
And it takes, we've gotten so sophisticated and so super smart that we have now crested and we're looping back.
Sure.
And to
first principles.
Have good friends.
Right.
Have like a spiritual center. Like if you're married, like be good at that. Don't blow your marriage up like I almost did a few times. Like do those small things right, and they have outsized effect on just living with peace.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to see what's happened culturally, just because the mental health crisis is a direct relation to the fact that we've solved so many of our other problems.
That's exactly right.
It's the first world problem that we have, but it doesn't make it less of a problem.
Yeah, but for me, once I recognized it, right? So in one of your Vegas like neighbors who's become a great friend of mine, Michael Easter, like he wrote that book, The Comfort Crisis, which I think is like a 21st century masterpiece. But really it frames like for all of human history, our bodies solve for scarcity. And then overnight, now we have enough food, enough water, and enough mates, and enough all this other stuff. And so now, for me, it's just a matter of flipping a switch. It's for all of human history, you wake up and, dude, we got to find enough calories to get to tomorrow. And now I have to come up with some practices for not consuming every calorie in front of me, right? Exactly. It used to be like there was 3 potential mates in a tribe, and like her dad traded many goats, right, with my dad, right? And now it is, I can swipe right indefinitely.
Right.
So every morning I got to look over at my wife and say, I choose you. And when I realize I'm not broke and there's not something wrong with me, I just need some new skills. Well, man, that's an easy problem to solve. I don't have to go to war with myself over that.
Yeah.
I think we have a culture of people walking around who hate themselves, who think they're a burden. And I mean, why do you want to fix something if you think you're broken, right? It's not worth fixing.
Mm.
And so for me, that switch flips like, oh, no, we just create a world our bodies can't live in. Well, now I can go solve that.
Yeah.
And I don't have to work on these big existential things. I can start, what can I control, and then go from there.
Yeah. What are some of the, I've already kind of mentioned a few things. What are some of the kind of lowest hanging fruit to work on first?
I don't believe, let me say it this way. Your body would be failing you if it registers that you're lonely, that you got nobody to call. You have no gang. It would be failing you if it let you sleep all night, because you're all you have, right? It can't afford to let you sleep all night. Your body would be failing you if it let you have a deep, connected, intimate moment with a romantic partner. It's not time for sex. It's time to not die. You have nobody, right? So the lowest hanging fruit, as far as I'm concerned, and I say this beneath sleep, beneath diet, is you have to give your body a chance to exhale. And the only way you can do that is if you've got friends, if you've got a community. And also, I'll go one step further. It can't be an online-only community. I think we're dying of loneliness.
Yeah.
I've heard one researcher call it long-tail suicide. We're just lonelying ourselves to death. And all of these other addictions and opiates, all these things are backfilling a body that is desperately terrified because it doesn't have anybody.
You're solving the wrong problem.
That's exactly
in a lot of these.
If you woke up 1,000 years ago and your tribe left you, your body knows I'm going to die.
Right, because you literally would die.
You would literally die.
Yeah.
And so we can be surrounded by all sorts of zeros and ones and transmissions of data, but dude, we are lonely.
That's the most surprising thing that's come out of this show, Travis Makes Friends, is that we've really been trying to dive deep on the loneliness epidemic, reading a bunch of research recently, and it just is insane how many actual physical problems, because the mental health problems made sense to me. It was like that I could see how there's a direct correlation between depression, anxiety, suicide with feelings of loneliness. But what surprised me was that it was the physical health pieces.
Yeah.
It was that loneliness can have more of an effect than smoking 15 cigarettes a day on your actual physical well-being.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And it's wild that we're not doing anything about it. And then, social media and everything like that, just, I don't want to paint it as the villain, because it's not the only villain. There's plenty of reasons why we're experiencing this. The most insidious part to me about social is that it implies that it's taking care of that problem.
Correct.
It's literally called social media. It implies that it is directly solving this need that we have, and it's not at all. Like, you got to stop looking at your social media activity as my connection time. It's you have to look at the media word rather than the social word, and you have to look at it as like this is the equivalent in terms of connecting to other people. Is this activity is more closely related to watching Netflix than it is to hanging out with my friends.
That's right.
They're different things.
I like to think of it calorically. It is TV dinners came out in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Like prepackaged garbage that was supposed to like make dinner time better so that you could sit in front of a TV and watch it and you didn't have to waste time cooking. Those are calories, and they'll kill you, right? They'll keep you alive until it kills you.
Yeah.
Social media is the exact same way. And by the way, I as a mental health guy, I've stopped. Anxiety is not a problem. It can get that way. Wendy Suzuki, a researcher out of NYU, said, like, anxiety's a friend. I'll even go as far as to say, in many cases, OCD can be your friend, depression can be a friend. It's your body trying to get your attention, trying to keep you safe, whether it's going to shut everything down, spin everything up, like loop and repeat to make sure. We've gone about trying to solve those issues. The way I describe it in the book is like something like simple as anxiety. It's just the smoke detector, man. It is not what's on fire. The fire is the problem. Smoke detectors is doing its job. Yeah. And
it's a symptom of the problem.
Yeah. And so we've declared war on our bodies and we blame our bodies. And then we have somebody at every corner trying to sell us a fix, whether it's a hack or whether it's a pill or and I'm not against hacks. I'm not against pills. I'm just saying we're solving the wrong problem.
Yeah.
The wrong problem is, dude, get up and go outside and look at the sun.
Yeah.
Get up outside and have a gang, right? Have a group of people that you meet with regularly. Fix your marriage, dude. And all these other things downstream tend to resettle themselves, right? I don't want to live in a body that doesn't have the ability to depress when it needs to. If my mom dies, I need my body to slow me down, right? I need that. I don't want to live in a world where my body doesn't anxious up when it needs to.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be in that building with no
Right.
smoke detector, right? But man, we can't live like this.
So if we're solving for loneliness, one of the more some of the more upsetting news to me when I was doing this research is that there's a difference between loneliness and social isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not as simple as just like, well, go hang out with your friends, because feelings of loneliness are subjective and internal. They're not objective. They have nothing to do with your surroundings. You could be in the middle of a friend group and feel completely and utterly alone.
Well, I've shared a bed with a woman. I've been married for 23 years, and there's been years when I felt completely alone in the bed I was sharing with a woman who I knew loved me.
Right. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how, with that in mind, what can we actually do if somebody's listening or watching and they're thinking like, yeah, that's me. Like I feel like I have support. Objectively, if you looked at my life, you'd be like, oh, they're fine. They're surrounded by people, but I don't feel like that. How did people get out of that?
I'll step back 1,000 foot and answer that question.
Please.
Kind of reverse engineer it. I think in an effort to make life awesome, we've also told ourselves like a new story about ourselves. Here's what I mean. I don't have to ask a friend to drive me to the airport anymore. I just push a button on my phone and a stranger picks me up.
Yeah.
I don't borrow eggs from my neighbor. I just push a button on my phone and eggs show up from the local grocery store. That's awesome, man. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps my day be more efficient. But the meta message is that somehow me asking a neighbor makes me a burden. They would all be better off if I didn't say, hey, can you help with this? Can you give me a ride? Why would you do that? Why don't you just Uber? Hey, can I borrow some eggs? Why would you do that? Just Instacart it. Like, are you too cheap, right? So I think in an effort to solve for some of these challenges, the air we breathe is we're not working right, and our neighbors would be better off if we just kept our door shut. We're a burden. And so I'm not going to put myself onto somebody else. I'm not going to reach out to a friend. I'm not going to say, hey, you want to go out? Because I don't want to inconvenience you. I don't want to make your life more difficult, so it would be better if I just stayed inside.
Yeah.
And so I think the air we breathe is mind your own business, put your head down.
Bought into that story.
I think without even meaning to.
Yeah.
And so if I loop all the way back around, I have to start by looking in the mirror and saying telling myself I'm not a burden. And then the research tells me the greatest gift I can give my neighbor is to say, hey, I see value in you. Can you help me? What a gift, man. Right? And is it annoying? Yes. And is it awesome? Yes. If my neighbor comes and says, hey, will you help me move all this stuff? My first instinct is, ugh, that's not what I had on the docket for today.
Right.
There's few things more that feel better than spending a couple hours helping a neighbor and then going home and being like, yeah. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so I think it's being weird and going first.
Yeah, I have this like running tab in my notes section on my phone of just like life lessons, just whatever. If I pick something up or if I think about something or if I read something. And one of them that I wrote down recently was things that are awesome are equally not awesome.
Yes.
And it's just kind of a truth that you have to accept.
That's right.
We're talking about, having kids, being married, friendships, serving other people, all of those things, awesome. All of those things suck.
Yeah, they're hard. I think, gosh, I over a long dinner one night, I remember me and Michael Easter having that conversation about choosing your heart. And like living a life where you're lonely is hard and it'll kill you. Asking your friends for help or being that guy that's like, you want to go camping? Crickets.
Yeah.
And then you start to look in the mirror and be like, I think I'm kind of a loser. No one wants to go camping, right? That's hard too. And so really it's not a matter of either or. It's you got to choose the hard path.
Yeah, I was watching Simon Sinek talk about friendship. He's been kind of on a tear talking about friendship recently, which I really, really appreciate to have voices like his coming into that conversation culturally. But he kind of brought that up, and it made me realize that I needed to fix some things in my friendship habits, which was, you think that being a good friend is being the person that's just there for everybody, but in reality, being a good friend is also being the person that's willing to ask everybody for help, that's willing to say like, hey guys, going through it. Like, let's go grab a drink or something. And I'm terrible at that. And I think men in general, people in general, society in general is that way. I think men are even more that way just because we don't want to admit that we need the help. but it's
Which
the
is
thing that we need to do.
because the hardest dudes I know, like the elite military guys, I trained with professional MMA fighters for a few years. Like those guys all know, hey, I got a fight coming up. I need you. I need you. I need you. I need you. Right? Hey, will you be in my corner?
Have an
One
entire
of the greatest
team.
gifts, right? Or the military guys. I remember texting a buddy who was rolling off one of the SEAL teams, and I said, hey, do y'all love each other? And his response was something to the tune of a unique and powerful love that no one will ever know, right? That guy won't only give his life for me; he'll give his life to go get my body back.
Yeah.
I mean, and you and I, we don't know what that's like,
No.
right? We know, like, hey, you mowed one strip over. That's actually my yard, right? That's what we know, right? Or like, hey, you need to pick out your garbage cans, sir.
Right.
Like, that's what we know. And so the guys who get like safety and connection, no, I can't do this by myself.
Yeah.
Right? It's the rest of us who think that, I don't know, think that doing life is by having it all figured out.
Yeah. Challenges our ego.
Yeah. And I grew up in Texas. I spent 40 years in Texas.
Yeah.
That the Lone Ranger myth is awesome. It's a cool story. It's just complete nonsense. It's not true.
It doesn't
not
actually
real.
exist.
No,
yeah,
it's not
right.
real.
I had this like kind of come to Jesus moment recently, bro, where I was like, for a long time, I wouldn't watch romantic comedies because I was just like, this is the most unrealistic depiction of love that I could possibly imagine. And
But we'll watch John Wick.
and then I go watch Thor, and I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm like, it's just the same thing, just for dudes. It's
That's
just like
exactly
a
right,
dude pictures himself being John Wick, just like the girl pictures this unrealistic version of love, and it was like, oh, okay, well, that's just me being a douche. Like I could probably sit down and watch.
Or I
this
watch
stuff.
John Wick, like, I've been kicked in the head, and you wake up, you open your eyes, and there's like 3 other dudes staring down at you, like, you cool, man?
Yeah.
And I watch him get kicked 116 times during a firefight. It's just not real. It's
John
just not
Wick
real.
4, when he falls out of like a 4-story window and then just like onto a car and then just limps away. I was like, what?
And the car still drives.
I was like, this is insane.
But it's just, it's the
But I watched
fantasy
it
that we live in.
and I will watch it again. Yeah.
It's the fantasy we live in.
Absolutely.
Right? And the same with pornography. The same with any of this just flex all.
Yeah.
But I think all of it is this. It's all this, the air we breathe, which is you somehow are separate, and you got to figure this all out by yourself. You got to do it all by yourself.
Yeah.
And you can't. You gotta enter into the messy, ugly. That's real life.
The big question that I've been getting a lot running the show, and that a lot of my friends have been getting on their shows, is as adults, how do you make friends?
I think you have to call it out that, like, not having friends is worse than having a drug problem. And so I've got to treat it with that level of seriousness. And I don't know another way. I haven't figured it out. I don't know another way than to go first and be super awkward. Just go be weird.
Yeah.
And going back to the original question, being alone in a crowded room. Man, I was just telling this to a group the other day, like at an event. I have 2 moments politically that stick in my soul. One when I was younger and one recent. One when I was younger, I remember it was some town hall, something or other, but John McCain was running for president against Barack Obama. And somebody in some way stood up and was like talking about Obama's trying to do this, and he's trying to do this, and trying to do this. And I remember being a young guy, and McCain stopped it. He said, hold on. Him and I disagree vehemently on how to solve these problems, but he's a good husband, and he's a good dad. He's a good man. We just disagree on this stuff. We're going to stop this nonsense right now. I remember stopping in my tracks thinking, oh, that's how you do that. That's how you disagree. And then I remember, like, stamped into like a little GPS pin in the middle of my chest was the last debate what you and I just experienced, where one candidate said, if you vote for this person, you're voting for the end of democracy.
Yeah.
And then the other person said, well, if you vote for this person, you're voting for World War III.
Yeah.
And I remember turning the TV off going, I got 2 little kids. What do I do with this?
Yeah.
Right. And so we've got this world where if I think differently than you or have a different idea, I have to hate you and I have to fight you. But there's an other side to that, which means if I have a different opinion, you have to hate me. So we walk into every room and we shove all of our thoughts and our ideas and our questions into our chest. For the last 10 years, you and I had to be careful. The questions we even asked, even
Right.
asking a question would get our shows canceled.
Right.
Right? That's insane.
Right.
I spent 20 years in higher ed. The whole point was to ask hard questions and then go solve them.
Right.
And iron sharpens iron and peer review. And I think that's dumb. And I think this. And
Yep.
let's go have a drink. Right. And so I think we all walk around with this cap on our chest into these rooms, and we're not known. We're surrounded by loved ones, and we're not known. And we're surrounded by loved ones, and we don't have a path to, hey, I didn't vote for that person, and here's why. Well, now I hate you. Get
Right.
out of my house.
Right.
The most common question I get on my show is about cutting off loved ones for ideas, thoughts. They were mean to me growing up. I'm not
Wow.
talking about abuse or
Sure,
right?
sure.
But like, they should have done this differently, right?
Wow.
Your mom, who's now 62, is paying for her sins when she had you at 22, right?
Right.
We just walk into every room unknown.
Hmm.
And if you walk into a room unknown and without the courage to be heard and seen, that's the definition of lonely, unseen. Right?
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
And so we do it with our wives, we do it with our family members, we do it with our coworkers. And so we're just living these little pods, man.
Yeah.
And so there's no wonder I pick up my phone and it's got my echo chamber
Yeah.
that's just for me.
Your personalized
It's awesome.
algorithm handed directly to you.
Now I can be seen.
Yeah.
Right.
To reinforce everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's tough, man. That's tough. Do you think that can be solved on an individual basis?
Yeah, I think when you take somebody out of a category and you give them a name, right? Like, two of my closest friends on the planet, we all vote different from each other.
Yeah.
We've got one radical libertarian, and I'm always like, oh, it's really easy to be a libertarian when someone else built your roads, right? And that's fun.
Yeah.
And he makes fun of me,
Yeah, yeah.
and we make fun of my other, like, and we all love each other. And I know if, like, I just flew down and was at one of their mother's funerals,
Yeah.
and you know what I'm saying? I was just
Yep.
on the phone with checking on one of their other dads is struggling as he's getting older, and so those people I love, but I think but they have names.
Right.
They're not categories, right? They're not this political party
not
or this political
categories,
party
yeah.
or this particular. They're my friends, right? I know their name, I know their kids, I know their spouses, and we've been through hard stuff together.
Yeah. What's your advice to somebody who feels like if they do express how they genuinely feel about something, that the people that they do have in their life are going to abandon them? What would be your advice to them?
Then those aren't friends. That's not connectivity. That's like having a house full of dogs
Yeah.
that will bite you at any minute.
If there's conditions,
Your body can't let you be safe because you're not,
yeah.
right? So we often feel we can't. Often we can. You just have a room full of people who won't go first, and then everybody just goes home unsatisfied. And so you have to have 2 more drinks, and you have to, you got to do these other things that we pathologize. Dude, alcohol works, man. When you're lonely and no one will listen to you and you feel isolated, alcohol works until it kills you, right?
Right.
And so
It's a great salve.
yeah. Also, all these things that we're demonizing, they should be. They're not good, but get to the main issue, man. And if you have a community of people who you can't tell the truth or you can't even ask a question,
Yeah.
you got to get a new gang.
Yeah. Truth doesn't shy away from questions.
No, man.
Yeah.
And what I think our generation, 30, 40s, and 50-year-olds, especially, there's no roadmap for making friends. Like, there's no roadmap in human history for people who move as much as we did.
Yeah.
And it's normal. It's weird now if you stay in the same community where you grew up. You're a weirdo, right? Oh, you never got out, right?
You're still there.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's never happened in all of human history. So we've got a bunch of lonely people who've got the job they wanted and the salary they wanted, but they got nobody, right? And then you've got a generation of grandparents who feel abandoned by their kids, and there's no way to bridge that gap. And so it's just messy. And so we can either go back home, or we can do the hard work of saying, hey, I don't need friends, man.
Yeah.
Here's funny. So I talk about this all the time, and a woman who edits some of my writing, she's amazing. And she finally said, I got to where, your argument was compelling, John, but it sounded insane. She's about 15 years younger than me. So her and her husband, they went around their neighborhood. They live in a condo here in Nashville. They went and flyered their immediate neighborhood and said, Taco Tuesday or Taco Wednesday, we'll provide the meat and stuff. Y'all bring the toppings. And I think 40-something people showed up.
40 something?
And it was a house full of randos. Kids, older kids, different races. Everyone just showed up.
Yeah.
And here's what was rad, and here's what I remember going, ooh, that's a problem for me. They did it again, and like 20-something people showed up. And they said it was equally amazing. And I said, oh, man, because I've ROI'd, I'm of the network generation where you only reach out if somebody can get you something or what can I get from them. I would have lost sleep that night at why did only half as many people come back? Instead of
Like maybe I shouldn't do this again. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I didn't perform well enough. I should have had 80 instead of 20.
Right.
Right. Because if, I just had an event up here, sold out, it was awesome. And then the immediate question is, dude, how do we 1.5 times this?
Right.
Instead of just being really grateful that we helped a bunch of people with their marriages, right? And we made enough money to do it again one day, right? When it went from 40 to 20, I thought, oh no, that would have kept me up at night. That's a me problem, right?
Sure.
And if 5 people showed up, that can be an amazing, rich night. But what I've seen people be successful is it doesn't usually start with 40 because people aren't as brave as her and her husband are, but you ask 5 people out, and then 5 show up, or 3 show up, and then 3 show up the next time, 1 shows up the next time, and over time, that's your person. 1 or 2 people will kind of keep circling up, and you'll think the same things are funny. I have a habit of being in a meeting and just dropping an old Dumb and Dumber line, or if somebody ever says the words, well, step 1, and I'll say, is to cut a hole in the box, and 1 or 2 people in the room will go, and I'll know, like, y'all
yeah.
people, right? Let's go grab lunch, right? And that's how
immediate call out.
That's right.
Yeah.
And my wife,
anybody who gets this joke,
my
we're on
wife
the
knows
same page.
if somebody looks up, y'all aren't my people, because you don't think that's funny at all, right? And so, but you have to just keep your eyes open, and then you got to go first and go be weird.
That's the big piece. Yeah, the courage to go first. The cold open. Is tough for a lot of people.
There's a phenomenal book. I don't buy all the philosophy, but I think the general question is so remarkable. Die with Zero. It's a book about living. It has a lot of equations and numbers in it, but I love the question it asks, which is, when you're 72, would you rather have not gone to those concerts because your buddy didn't have enough money to pay for the ticket? Or would you rather be 72 and remember all the concerts y'all went to? So I'm in a season right now, I look at my life as like I'm a farmer, and I'm in a season right now where the crop has come in well.
Yeah,
right? It's a season of blessing right now. So this morning, I bought 3 tickets to a punk rock show, and I just texted 2 of my buddies, one of whom is doing well and one who just lost her job. And I said, hey, I got 3 tickets. Y'all are coming. Yeah. If they Venmo me, great. I'm not going to ask. Right. If they don't, we're all 3 going to go to a punk
equally
rock
as
show.
great. Yeah.
And we're too old to be at punk rock shows. And it's super fun to have old guys at punk rock shows. Because I remember being 19 being like, that's the old guy at the punk rock show.
That's going to be me.
That's right. That's right. So I'm getting to live my 19-year-old dream, right? But I'd rather have the shared experience of a good time. Yeah. And there's going to be seasons when I don't have enough money for a ticket, right? I'll get fired from this at some point. And then I'll hope that one buddy will be like, hey, I got an extra ticket, let's go. And I'd rather do life that way. Yeah.
One too many Lonely Island jokes will get you fired one day. But
trust me, I've danced on that edge.
We're on the
before.
cusp.
I've danced on the edge. That's right.
John, thanks so much for doing this. I know you got a busy schedule ahead of you, so we're going to get you out of here. Where can people go to get more from Dr. John Delony?
Just on the internets at John Delony.
They
go, or you can. I have a YouTube podcast show, Dr. John Delony Show. You can check out. Hey, before we go, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
What are you discovering in your own life? You got 2 young kids. You're married. Your wife's got a business. You're traveling around doing tons of interviews. What does that look like for creating community, friends, like not just old long text thread meme bros, but like I've got to have a couple guys that'll show up in the middle of the night if my wife gets sick and I'm out of town. Those kind of guys. How's that tide turning for you? Yeah,
it's been an interesting journey because the show started as a networking show, like a professional networking show, and I was actually just talking to Ken about this because I felt like I was onto something. We all feel like we're smarter than we are, especially when we're younger.
Us.
So I felt like I was actually kind of a bad friend to a lot of my real friends for a long time because I was so focused on professional advancement and getting this next interview and talking to that person and hanging out with these people who just sold their company for $200 million and whatever. And then what ended up happening was got a cancer diagnosis last year, and it made me just very, very introspective and started thinking through, like, what am I doing with my time?
Yeah.
And around that time, I took a boys trip out to Nashville with a couple of my lifelong friends that I've known since we were like 3 years old.
No pedal tavern, right?
What's that?
You didn't get a pedal tavern, did you?
No,
Good.
no.
Wasn't
No,
that kind of trip to Nashville?
It was not that kind of a trip. No. We basically just set up at an Airbnb. We'd go out at night and have some drinks, but played video games, cooked some steaks, and hung out. And it was the first time in a long time that I'd traveled just to hang out with friends and do no business.
Yeah.
You know, because even if I travel for friends' stuff, it's like, let's tack on this thing or let's throw this thing in the mix. It's the first time in a long time that I'd done that, and it made me realize that like there was a big gap in my personal life for not making sure that I maintain these like personal friendships that have nothing to do with anything other than just being friends and hanging out. So the last year or so has been more like trying to really re-engage with that side, which is one of the big reasons for the show. So it's funny, I actually asked two of my buddies to start coming on the show with me. One of them's a prison guard, the other one's a firefighter. So no experience in any of this stuff, but I was just like, we just need a time once a quarter where you guys come out to Vegas, we go play some shitty golf and have some drinks and just we can play video games on the podcast. We can talk about movies we're watching recently. Like we can do whatever we want. I just want to make sure we have a time that we can set aside where we just can be bros and re-engage with the childhood versions.
I love that
of ourselves.
because it reframes, the sentiment of we need to hang out with people who are ahead of us professionally. Right?
Correct.
That's kind of the networking wisdom of our era.
The trope,
right?
yeah, sure.
You need to have 5 people that are where you want to be, and you hang out with them and learn from them and whatever. There's some truth to that, but I'm more interested in hanging out with people who are dads like I want to be dads, and husbands like I want to be husbands.
Right.
And I think that my professional life is enriched because my closest buddies, one runs a HVAC company, and one's a banker, and one works in hearing aids, and right. They're scattered all over the place, and it gives me a bigger perspective than just sales to move.
Exactly. Well, I was solving for the wrong problem.
That's
it was like I was professional success was the pinnacle of what I was shooting for, and in reality, it's like. It's really about happiness, fulfillment, purpose, and those things can only come from having rich relationships. Yeah. So it was a big reframe for me. And one of the reasons we moved along the show to this Travis Makes Friends concept, where it was more about like, if I'm experiencing this, I know a lot of other people are too, That's what the show's been about. It's kind of my own personal journey to figure out how we can make the world a more connected place.
Well, dude, thanks for doing that. Yeah. It's a worthy call, man. It's a worthy mission.
Yes, sir. John, I appreciate you for coming on. You're one of the top relationship guys out there, and you talk about this stuff a lot, so I appreciate your work in the world. Everybody listening, tuning in, I'm sure you've heard of John. If you have not, you're doing yourself a disservice by not going and looking at some of the shows that he has. The books that he's written, this is one of many. Go consume as much as you can from John. He's doing a lot of really great work in the world. John, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you, brother.
Everybody else listening, tuning in, remember to leave every relationship better than you found it. We'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.